For all of human history, we have looked up at the night sky and asked the same, fundamental question: are we alone? We exist on a tiny, fragile planet, orbiting an average star in a quiet corner of a galaxy that contains hundreds of billions of other stars. Beginning in the mid-20th century, astronomers began to do more than just look at the stars, they began to listen to them. They built colossal radio telescopes, giant metal dishes designed to act as cosmic ears, capable of picking up the faintest whispers from across the void. And then, on a summer night in 1977, for 72 fleeting seconds, that silence was broken. A radio telescope in Ohio, quietly scanning the skies, captured a powerful and enigmatic burst of radio waves coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. For 72 seconds, did humanity finally hear a shout from across the void? Did we intercept a genuine message from an alien intelligence? This is the story of the WOW signal. It was a signal so strong, so clear, and so perfectly aligned with what astronomers expected an alien message to look like, that it defied all easy explanation. The quest of SETI is an act of supreme optimism and patience. A few days later, on August 15th, an astronomer named Dr. Jerry Emin was performing the routine task of reviewing the latest printouts. As his eyes scanned the columns of alphanumeric characters representing the signal strengths, he saw something that made him stop cold. Amidst the usual low-level noise, there was a sequence of characters representing a signal of astonishing intensity, a dramatic spike that rose far above the background hiss before fading away again. In a moment of pure unadulterated scientific shock and excitement, Dr. Emin grabbed a red pen, circled the anomalous data string, and scribbled a single word in the margin of the printout, a word that would give the signal its name and cement its place in history: wow. It is the modern equivalent of putting a seashell to your ear, but on an interstellar scale, listening intently through the hiss and crackle of cosmic static for a single, coherent pattern, a voice in the noise. And our galaxy is just one of hundreds of billions of other galaxies scattered across the observable universe. In this stupefyingly vast cosmic ocean, teeming with countless potential homes for life, it can feel impossible to believe that this small, blue world is the only place where consciousness has taken root. The sheer mathematics of it all seem to suggest that someone, or something, else must be out there. This ancient question led to one of the most profound and patient scientific endeavors ever undertaken: SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The universe is an incredibly loud place. Stars are born in violent nurseries and die in spectacular explosions. Pulsars spin like celestial lighthouses, beaming out jets of radiation. Quasars, powered by supermassive black holes, scream across the cosmos with an energy that dwarfs entire galaxies. And underneath it all is the constant, low hum of the cosmic microwave background, the leftover radiation from the Big Bang itself. The job of a SETI astronomer is to filter through this natural chaotic symphony and listen for a single unnatural note, a signal that is structured, focused and ordered in a way that suggests it was not created by the random violence of nature but by the deliberate hand of intelligence. For decades, the search yielded nothing but silence. The cosmic static was all there was. The signal was not discovered as it happened. It was recorded, along with countless hours of other data, on long reams of computer printout paper. That one, scribbled word has echoed for decades, representing the most tantalizing and frustrating clue we have ever found in our search for others. The instrument that overheard the most famous whisper from the cosmos was not one of the sleek, modern radio dishes we often imagine today. It was a strange and magnificent beast of a machine known as the Ohio State University Radio Observatory, or, more affectionately, the Big Ear. But in 1973, after its funding for that project ran out, the telescope was repurposed for one of science's most ambitious and speculative quests: the full-time search for extraterrestrial intelligence. To have any hope of success, the SETI astronomers had to make an educated guess. They had to decide where to listen, and what to listen for. It would have to be a frequency that any other intelligent species, regardless of their biology or culture, could independently discover and recognize as significant. The hydrogen line is the perfect candidate. Hydrogen is everywhere. Its unique frequency is a universal constant, woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Furthermore, this frequency happens to fall within a relatively quiet part of the radio spectrum, a peaceful channel amidst the cosmic noise, making it an ideal choice for long-range communication. It is, as they called it, a cosmic waterhole, a natural, quiet meeting place on the vast radio dial where it would be logical for different species to gather and listen. The what was a narrowband signal, a transmission focused on a very specific frequency, unlike the broad, messy static of natural radio sources. Its computer was programmed to scan 50 different channels, each just 10 kHz wide, centered around the hydrogen line. Every 12 seconds, the computer would measure the signal strength on each of these 50 channels. It would assign a value to the signal's intensity, from 0 for background noise up to 9 for a strong signal. If a signal was even stronger than that, it would start using letters of the alphabet, from A for a signal 10 times the background noise, to U for a signal 30 times the background noise. This data was then printed out as a continuous stream of characters on long sheets of paper. For years, the printouts were filled with nothing but low numbers, the endless, random hiss of the universe. The big ear listened patiently, waiting for a single, unnatural note to rise above the static at this one special, universal frequency. The where on the radio dial was the most critical choice of all. And the frequency they chose is what makes the story of the WOW signal so scientifically compelling. They decided to listen around a frequency of 1420 MHz. It became the longest-running SETI program in history, a silent, continuous vigil, listening day and night for any signal that bore the hallmarks of technology. Built in the 1950s and dedicated to science in 1963, the Big Ear was a unique design. It consisted of a massive, flat, tilting reflector the size of 3 football fields, and a huge, curved focusing reflector. Unlike a modern satellite dish that can be steered to point anywhere in the sky, the Big Ear was largely fixed in place. It used the rotation of the Earth itself to sweep a narrow strip of the sky each day, like a relentless, patient scanner. For its first decade, the Big Ear was used for a more conventional purpose, mapping the radio sources of the universe in what became known as the Ohio Sky Survey. But listening to the entire cosmos is like trying to listen to a single conversation in a stadium where every single person is shouting. This isn't just a random number. 1420 MHz is one of the most significant and fundamental frequencies in the entire universe. It is the frequency of radio waves naturally emitted by neutral hydrogen atoms, the most common and simplest element in existence. This is known as the hydrogen line or the 21-centimeter line. The reasoning, first proposed by physicists Giuseppe Cacconi and Philip Morrison in 1959, is a beautiful piece of scientific logic. They argued that if an intelligent civilization wanted to send a deliberate beacon to announce its existence to the cosmos, it would need to choose a frequency that was not arbitrary. So, the Big Ear was tuned to this specific, sacred frequency. In the summer of 1977, the Big Ear telescope was in its 4th year of its SETI mission, its giant metal ear patiently sweeping the heavens. By this point, the process of data collection had become a familiar, almost mundane routine. It was a painstaking and often tedious job. It meant manually scanning endless columns of characters, looking for anything out of the ordinary. The vast majority of the data was, as expected, a sea of ones and twos, representing the faint, ever-present background noise of the universe. Occasionally, a higher number might appear, indicating a passing satellite or a piece of terrestrial interference. A powerful, narrow-band signal that appeared suddenly, grew in strength as it entered the telescope's focus, and then faded away as it left. This was not the messy, chaotic signature of a natural phenomenon. It gave a name to the anomaly and perfectly encapsulated the profound mystery it represented. The WOW signal was no longer just a string of data, it was now a story, a legend. A single moment of discovery that has stood for over 40 years as the most compelling piece of potential evidence we have ever found in our long, lonely search for company in the cosmos. This was a clean, sharp, bell curve-shaped signal, the unmistakable signature of a point source in deep space. And it had occurred on one of the 50 channels being monitored around the hydrogen line. It checked all the boxes. The work required a sharp eye and a deep well of patience. It was a mixture of shock, disbelief, and profound excitement. He was possibly the first human being in history to see what could be concrete evidence of an intelligent communication from another world. He grabbed the red pen he had with him, circled the entire 6EQJ5 sequence to mark its significance. And in the margin of the paper, he wrote the only word that could adequately capture the feeling of that moment. He didn't write Eureka, or confirmed, or any technical jargon. In a burst of pure, spontaneous emotion, he simply wrote, "Wow." The telescope listened, and its connected IBM 1130 computer translated the radio signals into a cascade of alphanumeric characters, which were then printed onto wide, fan-folded sheets of paper. The data was stored, but because the program was run almost entirely by a small team of dedicated volunteers, the printouts would often sit for several days before anyone had a chance to review them. But to Jerry Emmon, who knew the observatory's intensity scale by heart, it was an immediate jolt of adrenaline. He understood exactly what he was looking at. The sequence started with a 6, representing a signal 6 times stronger than the background noise. Then, as the telescope continued to track the source, the intensity ramped up dramatically. E. Q. U. U was the highest value the scale could print, representing a signal at least 30 times stronger than the background noise. This was a signal of immense power. Just as telling was how the signal faded. After peaking, it began to decrease in intensity, following a perfectly symmetrical pattern as it moved out of the telescope's view, J5, and then back down to the background noise. The astronomer on duty that summer was Dr. Jerry Emmon. A few days after August 15th, Emmon arrived at the observatory to perform his regular volunteer task, to collect the latest batch of printouts and review them by hand. As he worked his way through the stack of printouts, his eyes fell upon a section of data from the night of August 15th. At first, it looked like just another column of numbers. But then, he saw it. Rising from the tranquil sea of ones and twos was a dramatic, isolated spike. It was a sequence of characters that was so far outside the bounds of normal background noise that it seemed to leap off the page. The sequence read, 6EQJ5. To a layperson, the string of characters is meaningless. Emmon was stunned. For years, they had been searching for exactly this. In that moment, sitting in the quiet observatory, staring at the printout, Jerry Emmon was overcome with a feeling that every SETI scientist dreams of. That single, 3-letter annotation transformed a sheet of computer data into a historical artifact. The single word "wow" perfectly captured Jerry Emmon's emotional reaction, but the signal itself earned that exclamation through its own remarkable scientific merits. To understand why this 72-second burst of energy remains the most compelling SETI candidate in history, we need to deconstruct it. The 6EQJ5 sequence was a measure of signal-to-noise ratio, how much stronger the signal was than the random background static of the universe. The letter U was the highest value the system could display, representing a signal that was at least 30 times more powerful than the background noise. The wow signal was detected squarely within this special, protected part of the radio spectrum. They broadcast their energy over a very wide range of frequencies, like a floodlight that illuminates a huge area. The wow signal was the complete opposite. It was detected in only one of the 50-10 kHz wide channels that the big ear was monitoring. It was a sharp, focused, almost pure tone, like a laser beam of radio energy. This is considered by many SETI scientists to be the primary hallmark of a technologically advanced civilization. It takes a great deal of energy and sophisticated technology to generate a powerful, narrowband signal. Nature doesn't typically create them. Intelligence does. Interestingly, it wasn't exactly on the hydrogen line frequency. It was slightly offset. But even this detail adds to its intrigue rather than detracting from it. Any alien civilization broadcasting from a planet would be moving relative to us, their planet would be rotating and orbiting its star, just as ours is. This relative motion would cause the signal's frequency to be slightly shifted due to the Doppler effect, the same phenomenon that makes a siren's pitch change as it passes you. A sophisticated broadcaster would know this, and might even intentionally offset their signal from the pure hydrogen line to account for their own planet's motion, making it an even clearer beacon. The observed frequency of the WOW signal was consistent with a broadcast from a celestial body moving at a plausible speed relative to Earth. This was not a faint, ambiguous whisper that could be easily dismissed. This was a loud, clear, and unambiguous shout. Here was a signal of immense power, with a profile that perfectly matched a deep space origin, at a frequency that was universally significant, and with a narrowband nature that strongly suggested artificial technology. The WOW signal wasn't just an anomaly, it was the ideal candidate. It checked every single box on the SETI wish list. It was, in every measurable way, the perfect hello from the stars. It was a powerful burst of energy that stood out dramatically from the otherwise quiet channel, ensuring it would not be missed by anyone reviewing the data. We need to look at its specific characteristics and see how they align, one by one, with the checklist of what astronomers had long predicted a genuine extraterrestrial signal would look like. When we do, we find a signal that seems almost perfectly tailored to be noticed. First, there was its sheer power. Second, there was its duration and profile. The signal was detected for a total of 72 seconds. This is a crucial detail. This was not the length of the alien transmission itself. This was the exact length of time that the Big Ear telescope, with its fixed design, would be able to observe a single point in the sky as the Earth rotated. As the source entered the telescope's observation window, the signal strength began to rise, peaking as it passed through the center of the beam, and then fading away symmetrically as it moved out of view. The 6EQUJ5 sequence perfectly plots this bell curve shape. This profile is the unmistakable signature of a signal coming from a fixed point in deep space, far beyond our solar system. It effectively ruled out a terrestrial source, like a passing airplane or satellite, which would not have so perfectly matched the telescope's unique observation window. Third, there was its frequency. As we discussed, the Big Ear was listening around the 1420 MHz hydrogen line, the cosmic waterhole. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, there was its narrowband nature. Natural cosmic radio sources, like stars, pulsars, and quasars, are messy. When you put all these pieces together, the picture becomes clear. Here was a signal of immense power, with a profile that perfectly matched a deep space origin, at a frequency that was universally significant, and with a narrowband nature that strongly suggested artificial technology. The WOW signal wasn't just an anomaly, it was the ideal candidate. It checked every single box on the SETI wish list. It was, in every measurable way, the perfect hello from the stars. The discovery of the WOW signal sent a jolt of excitement through the small community of astronomers at the Big Ear Observatory. Jerry Emmons, stunned by what he had found, immediately began a frantic search through the observatory's logs and other data to see if the signal could be a known satellite. A one-time event, no matter how compelling, is simply an anomaly. To be considered a true scientific discovery, a phenomenon must be observable again. For the WOW signal to graduate from a tantalizing mystery to a confirmed extraterrestrial communication, there was one absolute requirement: it had to be heard again. Not once. It was a cosmic shout heard a single time, which then vanished without a trace, never to return. This is the great paradox and the profound frustration of the WOW signal. It possessed all the hallmarks of a genuine message from an intelligent civilization, but its defining characteristic became its stubborn, baffling silence. The search for a repeat became the immediate and all-consuming priority. Science demands proof, and in the field of SETI, proof requires confirmation. A one-time signal is, and must remain, an unidentified radio signal. It is a mystery, not a conclusion. It leaves us with a tantalizing but ultimately unprovable event. We are left in the position of someone who, while walking on a deserted beach, finds a single, perfect footprint in the sand, only to watch a wave wash it away before they can find any others. The evidence was there, it was compelling, but it's gone, leaving only the memory and the profound, unanswered question of who made it. Why would a signal so powerful and so deliberate appear only once? Was it a fluke? A mistake? Or was the one-time nature of the broadcast itself part of the message? This lingering, 40-year silence is the central mystery we must now try to explain. A military experiment or some form of terrestrial interference? He found nothing. There were no known man-made objects that could account for such a powerful, narrow-band signal in that protected part of the spectrum. The initial checks all pointed to the same incredible conclusion: the signal appeared to have come from deep space. In the world of science, however, a discovery is only as good as its ability to be replicated. The director of the Big Ear Observatory, Dr. John Krause, and the head of its SETI program, Dr. Robert Dixon, were alerted. They immediately trained the Big Ear back onto the exact patch of sky in the constellation Sagittarius from which the signal had originated. They listened, and they heard nothing but the familiar, empty static of the cosmos. They tried again the next night, and the night after that. For months following the discovery, the Big Ear repeatedly and painstakingly scanned that same celestial coordinate, hoping to catch another broadcast. The result was always the same: silence. As news of the incredible signal began to spread throughout the global astronomical community, the search expanded. Other, more powerful radio telescopes were brought into the hunt. The 100-meter dish in Green Bank, West Virginia, was pointed at the location. The mighty 1,000-foot Arecibo telescope in Puerto Rico, the most sensitive radio telescope on Earth at the time, was tasked with listening for even the faintest echo of the original signal. In the decades that followed, over 100 different observation attempts have been made by various observatories around the world, all staring intently at that one small patch of sky. And yet, despite all this effort, despite using technology far more sensitive than the Big Ear, no one has ever detected the signal again. This lack of a repeat is what prevents the WOW signal from being officially declared as extraterrestrial. Science demands proof, and in the field of SETI, proof requires confirmation. A one-time signal is, and must remain, an unidentified radio signal. It is a mystery, not a conclusion. It leaves us with a tantalizing but ultimately unprovable event. We are left in the position of someone who, while walking on a deserted beach, finds a single, perfect footprint in the sand, only to watch a wave wash it away before they can find any others. The evidence was there, it was compelling, but it's gone, leaving only the memory and the profound, unanswered question of who made it. Why would a signal so powerful and so deliberate appear only once? Was it a fluke? A mistake? Or was the one-time nature of the broadcast itself part of the message? This lingering, 40-year silence is the central mystery we must now try to explain. A signal that perfectly matches our expectations of an alien message, heard once and never again, presents a profound puzzle. For over 40 years, scientists and amateur researchers have proposed a host of explanations, ranging from the extraordinary to the mundane, in an attempt to solve the mystery of the WOW signal. In this view, the signal was a deliberate beacon, a hello to the cosmos. One of the leading naturalistic explanations is a phenomenon known as interstellar scintillation. Astronomer Antonio Paris proposed that the signal was not from a distant star, but from much closer to home, a passing comet. Could the signal have been a man-made transmission from Earth that somehow reflected off a piece of space debris and into the telescope's dish? This is considered highly unlikely. The 1420 MHz frequency is part of an internationally protected spectrum, reserved exclusively for radio astronomy. Transmissions on it are illegal. He argued that the hydrogen cloud that naturally surrounds the nucleus of a comet could, under the right conditions, produce a radio signal at the 1420 MHz frequency. He identified two comets that were in the general area of the sky at the time of the signal. However, this theory has been largely debunked by the original team who discovered the signal, as well as by the wider astronomical community. They point out that the identified comets were not actually in the Big Ear's narrow observation beam at the precise time of the signal. Furthermore, a signal from a comet's hydrogen cloud would be very broadband, while the WOW signal was famously narrowband. Lastly, a comet would be moving relative to the background stars, and the signal's profile was a perfect match for a fixed, unmoving point in deep space. This is the radio wave equivalent of the twinkling of stars in the night sky. Just as starlight is distorted by our atmosphere, radio waves from deep space can be bent, focused, and momentarily amplified by passing through turbulent clouds of interstellar gas and plasma. The theory suggests that there could be a much weaker, continuous artificial signal out there, perhaps from a distant civilization's planetary radar system, that is normally too faint for us to hear. But on that one night in 1977, a chance alignment of these interstellar plasma lenses could have focused the signal and amplified it dramatically for a short period, making it strong enough for the Big Ear to detect. When we looked again, the temporary cosmic lens was gone, and the signal was once again lost in the background noise. This theory elegantly explains the signal's strength and its one-time nature, and it remains a strong contender. But this raises the immediate question of why it was only heard once. One possibility is that it was not a continuous broadcast aimed at Earth, but part of a sweeping, rotating beacon, like the beam of a celestial lighthouse. We on Earth may have just been incredibly lucky, our planet drifting through the path of this beam for a mere 72 seconds. If so, that beacon may not sweep past us again for hundreds or even thousands of years. Another possibility is that it was a powerful, one-time broadcast, a singular message in a bottle hurled into the cosmic ocean, which we just happened to intercept. Or perhaps it was a highly targeted transmission between two other star systems, and we simply eavesdropped on the faint signal leakage from the edge of their beam. This hypothesis is the most thrilling, but by its very nature, it is impossible to prove without a second detection. It remains an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence we simply do not have. To close this case file, we must examine the most prominent of these competing hypotheses. The most exciting and straightforward explanation is that the WOW signal was exactly what it appeared to be, a genuine, artificial signal from an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization. Faced with this lack of confirmation, scientists have proposed several natural phenomena that could potentially mimic an alien signal. In 2017, a new theory captured public attention. We arrive, in the end, where we began, with a profound and unanswered question. After deconstructing the signal, examining its perfect characteristics, and weighing the competing theories, we are left in a state of fascinating uncertainty. It was strong, it was narrowband, it was at the right frequency, and it came from a fixed point in deep space. It's as if we wrote a detailed letter, describing exactly what a message from an alien intelligence should look like, and the universe mailed it right back to us. Yet, without a second signal, without a repeat performance, it must remain what it is, a hypothesis. But of a profoundly successful moment of discovery, even if the discovery itself is incomplete. Was it a rotating beacon from a distant civilization? A strange and beautiful cosmic coincidence? Or something else entirely that we cannot yet comprehend? The signal is gone, but the data remains, a permanent ghost in the machine of science. It is a reminder that the universe is vast, mysterious, and likely far stranger than we imagine. And it is a powerful argument that we must continue our patient, hopeful search, keeping our own cosmic ear pressed to the silence, and listening. The value is captured perfectly by the word Jerry Emmons scribbled on that printout. Subscribe to the Archivist and click the bell so you never miss a file. It was not a word of certainty, but a word of pure, unadulterated wonder. Wow, is the sound of a scientist encountering something so far outside of their expectations that it momentarily transcends data and becomes an experience of genuine awe. The scientific method demands repeatability, and the WOW signal, by its very nature, has denied us that. The WOW signal remains the single greatest enigma in the history of our search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They offer a path to dismiss the event as a one in a billion cosmic fluke, a chance alignment of gas and energy that created a perfect mimic of an intelligent signal. But these theories, too, are not without their own issues, and none can perfectly account for every single characteristic of the signal. And so, the debate continues, with believers and skeptics locked in a stalemate that has lasted for decades. It is a perfect anomaly, a statistical outlier of such profound significance that it cannot be easily dismissed, yet so frustratingly ephemeral that it cannot be proven. Perhaps it was a message in a bottle. We can imagine a civilization, long ago and far away, tossing a single, powerful broadcast into the vast cosmic ocean, with no specific target and no expectation of a reply. A singular, energetic shout into the void, simply to say, "We were here." And on a summer night in 1977, our small, electronic bottle, the Big Ear telescope, just happened to wash up on the shore at the exact right moment to find it. It is, perhaps, the most compelling cold case in the history of science. The hypothesis that it was a genuine alien signal remains tantalizingly plausible precisely because the signal was so perfect. The natural explanations, like interstellar scintillation, provide a scientifically sound, if less exciting, alternative. Perhaps the best way to understand the WOW signal is not as a phone call that was suddenly cut off, but as something more romantic and ancient. The legacy of the WOW signal, then, is not one of a failed search. We may never know for sure what sent that 72-second shout from the direction of Sagittarius. Was it a rotating beacon from a distant civilization? A strange and beautiful cosmic coincidence? Or something else entirely that we cannot yet comprehend? The signal is gone, but the data remains, a permanent ghost in the machine of science. Subscribe to the Archivist and click the bell so you never miss a file. It is a reminder that the universe is vast, mysterious, and likely far stranger than we imagine. And it is a powerful argument that we must continue our patient, hopeful search, keeping our own cosmic ear pressed to the silence, and listening.